and gentlemen, nowadays people assuming that you get into traditional colleges and you will immediately preserve as an intellectual person and you will get a high level salary because you can work in a famous company because you get a bachelor degree from it, and that's not the case in this debate because it is skill that determine a high level salary, and this skill is not prepared by the traditional college degree because the traditional college degree is more like a theoretical school than a practical school. And first we have to learn the differences between vocational education and traditional college degree. So first differences is vocational schools focus more on specifically into a job training. And the second difference is there is an online program in traditional college degree, but there is a none when it comes to vocational education. And the third is differences between time it takes into graduating. For example, like in vocational education, it takes 2 years into graduate, but when it comes to a traditional college degree, it takes time between like 4 years minimal for graduate. That's why I believe as an intelligent but poor student, I would pursue a vocational education. Because why? Because I have a guarantee that I will doing well in work, like because vocational education focus more specifically on a job training. Because of that, I can get a high level salary because I can be promoted because I will doing well in work, and which can help the economic situation that I have, which are less privileged. And now moving on to my point of argument, why it is justifiable to do so. Why it is justifiable for intelligent but poor student to take an vocational education. So first we have to characterize of intelligent but poor student. Like first point that I'm going to talk about is student that excel but this kind of intelligent but poor student are students that excel in academic. For example, like this type of student will get a scores like above averages than the rest of their class, or they can get a high ranking in student parallel ranking. Or another point that I'm going to talk about is this intelligent but poor student have a disadvantaged background. Like for example, they get a less privilege than the other student. This less privileged student, like the less privilege is like a disadvantage in the economic background. For example, this kind of student cannot afford a uniform, so she or he have to borrow from their upperclassmen, or she cannot pay the tuition for the school. For this student have to go, and because of that, student have to go to the part-time work. And all those scholarships exist in our side of the house, and this kind of scholarship will make a student go into traditional college degree, but we say that it doesn't have a huge impact on it. So first analysis coming from it, and first analysis is this kind of education that the student get only in the form of theoretical and not practical. For example, like there is no guarantee whether or not the student will be doing well in work, because in a traditional college degree, like they usually give a student like a theoretical rather than a practice, and then imagine like you suddenly graduated and have to perform the theory that you learned in this type of school without any practice, and it will make this kind of student not doing well in the work. Like for example, when you teach baby how to walk, or you teach a kindergarten student to ride a bike, like most of us would immediately put it into practice instead of explaining to this child verbally or make them with a book on how to ride a bike. And moving on to my another point about characteristic vocational education that makes us more beneficial for intelligent but poor student would go. To simply put it, vocational education is a school that prepares students for a job. Like for example, there is a school that will teach carpentry, like a safety related math skills, and intercommunication skill related to their career choice. And moving on to my another point, like why it is more beneficial for us to go to the vocational schools. Like first, vocational school expand a student ability to keep a job and teaches students how to educate themselves as they follow a career path. This will be more beneficial because first of all, there is a guarantee that you will do well in work because there is a practice in school, and even if there is something wrong, there's something that you are doing wrong in practice, and you will immediately get a correction from the teachers. And then second beneficial that I will get from go into vocational education is that vocational education provide a quick education that will provide a marketable skills in a short time span. Like vocational school usually take time around 2 years to graduate rather than traditional college school to finish. Like a traditional college degree, because why? Because it takes time, like between 4 years to finish, and through this outset, there is a quick education like a life learning that the student will enjoy their diverse career path. And why? Why this is beneficial? Because why? Because they teach students how to be flexible with the technological trends, for example, and because few career paths are stable to technology. And although there is a stigma that students who take vocational education limit their ability to attend college, but this is not really the case because they're not just learning the theoretical but also the skills, and with this they will understand the practical aspect of working through problem. And that's why I believe as a poor but intellectual student, I have a guarantee that I will doing well in work because and if this happen in the long term, I can get promoted which means I can get a high level salary, and which make us help the economic situation, and which make us not less privileged again. That's why I brought to propose.